Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of D&Debates. This is a show where the four of us nerdy pals get together and talk about all things D&D, different topics every week that we like to debate, go over, discuss, maybe throw some jabs here and there. This week, I, Corey, am the moderator. So that is my name. How about everybody else?
My name is Amanda.
I'm Scott.
My name is Jake.
This is episode 4 of D&Debates. This week, the topic is homebrew. So, every dungeon master runs their game differently. And today we're going to see whose homebrew ideas give the most unique and fun spin to a game of D&D. So without further ado, honestly, not too much preamble to be had. That's a pen. Are y'all ready to do this?
Yeah. For the record,
Yes.
I remember what you
I
discussed.
was ready as the day I was born.
I've been ready for like 2 weeks now since you posted these questions. I'm determined. This is it. I better win.
2 weeks, those are rookie numbers. I've been ready for 2 years.
Wow. Well, regardless of how long we've been ready, I'm going to roll me a d6. And then we'll go ahead and get started with the order. Jake, you will be going first for this first question. Oh, by the way, let me real quick explain the structure of this show for those of you who are tuning in. We give each debater 3 questions. Question 1 is kind of like a round format. Question 1 and question 2 are given to the debaters beforehand for them to prepare their argument. And question 3 is withheld from them so that we get a nice bit of surprise on the last round of debates. So here we go. Round 1. This is question 1. Jake, you will be going first. Here's the question. Homebrew rules can take place in the game before the campaign even technically begins. That is, many DMs put special rules in place during character creation that spice up their game or help out their players. What is a homebrew rule that you have used or would want to use in the future that you think would be the best to implement in character creation? Jake.
How long do I get?
You get 2 minutes starting now.
I think the best thing you can add, I would say give players a feat at the beginning. I've done that in my campaigns. I think feats, I encourage feats to add into a background. So if they're, say, a dungeon delver, they take the dungeon delver feat. If they're a wrestler, say, take the grappler feat. This gives you a chance to take feats you'll never otherwise take because they aren't that good, because you're never going to take the dungeon delver feat over ability score improvement. And I think a lot of people play humans for the simple fact they're the only race that can start with a feat. I've done that. I do that a lot. And I think, why shouldn't a half-elf have the chef feast at level 1? Like, let them do it. Let them be free. And it's fun for players. I mean, I did it in my campaign. I think you guys find it fun. And it's really makes their character feel more unique. It kind of fleshes them out more. If they want to like min-max and take feats that are much to the background, they can. But I think it's a good opportunity to take those they wouldn't otherwise take. And it just kind of encourages them to play these different races, because I think people like feats are cool. They add a lot to your character. And I think the fact that you can't have a feat at level 1 in every race except human, a variant human, I think it's just like, why? Like, why can't they have feat until level 4? I mean, a lot of campaigns don't even get far past level 4. I mean, that's all I got to say about that. I'm done.
All right, with a little less than 30 seconds to spare, Jake, that is your argument for feats. The next debater to go will be Amanda. You will go second with question 1. Same question to you. What is a homebrew rule that you have used or would want to use in the future that you think would be the best to implement in character creation? Your 2 minutes starts now.
Right, so this is actually a thing that I have yet to implement, but I really, really want to. I wanted to start using in character creation in order to kind of get rid of the racial ability score increases. I want to start implementing the class modifier module. And the class modifier module is this thing designed and written by Gabriel Hicks. It is this amazing thing where instead of taking those, so usually 3 kind of points you get to distribute for ability score modifiers, instead of doing it based on race, it's based on your class. And it's this awesome system where you like find your class, and it has kind of 3 stats it'll focus on, and with a series of questions you can kind of redistribute and change, add to those ability scores that's not based on race. I like it so much because it encourages you to think more character-based, more background-based. For example, with the druids, I was looking through it, it kind of takes you through a series of questions, and it kind of distributes these extra points through intelligence, wisdom, and dexterity, so it's very druid-focused. At the same time, allowing players to keep their racial traits, things like the dark visions or Fey ancestry, without the kind of weird why are just elves better rangers than humans in general. It's kind of weird, kind of off, ties into some weird racial stuff with Wizards of the Coast and D&D. It's not always the greatest, and this is a great way, I think, to help alleviate that. At the same time, still gives structure. It helps encourage, thinking about your background, what type of, rogue, what type of ranger, what type of wizard are you? It is so much better than what Tasha's did. Tasha's, sort of addressed that, but in like 2 paragraphs, and it's really sad and is not nearly as in-depth and comprehensive and really cool as the class modifier module. 7 seconds, I'm panicking. Like I said, I haven't done it yet, but I really want to because it's very cool and very fun. It's free online to download. Yes.
Fine. Okay. Right there, we got Amanda vying for the class modification and modifiers. And finally, we have Scott. Same question to you. Homebrew rule, character creation. Your 2 minutes begins now.
Okay, so first off, there are lots of campaign-dependent homebrew rules that are very fun that I'd love to implement in the future. Stuff like I ran a campaign where I had all of my friends make themselves, and there were very strict rules about like stat generation and stuff. I am more looking for something that will be accessible for all campaigns going forward and most useful for addressing problems that are in D&D character creation. And the number one problem I see in D&D character creation is that not all archetypes are currently created equal. There has been an undeniable power creep from the player's handbook up to Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. And so there is a impetus for people to pick options that fit their character a bit less. There was a lot of discussion around the Ascendant Dragon Monk recently in UA that was like, oh, now we will use this when we want to play the 4 elements monk. And it just changes, it gives people, the way the power creep has developed discourages people from playing the things that are character specific. So what I am vying for is a set of homebrew rules to bring old things in line with current things. And that means changing certain abilities based on ability scores to based on proficiency bonus. That means changing the amount of times that you can use things. That means bringing classes such as Sorcerer that have now had spell lists added, adding spell lists to those. It would be a set of homebrew rules, but it would be specifically constructed to take the current design of the game and take the older options, which are more foundational archetypes that more people are interested in. I've seen more people who want to play a 4 elements monk
That's
than...
time.
Okay.
That's time. So before I open it up for chaos, I'll just make sure I get a good reading on your, like, give me just like 1 sentence, Scott, of your sort of.
Yeah, I
I was
need
a little
it too.
lost.
I need it too.
Just we're on the same page.
Change the subclass features of PHB and Xanathar's Guide to Everything, and Xanathar's Guide to Everything subclasses to be in line with those presented, the new design philosophies presented in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything.
Gotcha.
The
Okay.
proficient bonus scaling and the added spell lists.
All right. So now we will open it up. Chaos starts now.
I can tell
Okay.
Amanda wants to say something first.
I do. So first of all, Scott, I don't know where to start with how just I mean I guess, but number one problem is like what happens if you're the type of player like in your group, y'all just have like the PHB. I know so many people who don't have and have access to, have the money for, or even really know about these newer modules. So they don't even know that this other like newer, greater things exist, and they're just using the sort of classic foundational stuff. Therefore, this doesn't apply to them at all. So that's first thing of yours.
Right. Adding on to, I'll add on to that point,
Yeah,
man.
Jake, you can add on to that.
I'll add on to that point. I think what you've got there is not a homebrew rule, but an entire new system. That was my interpretation of it. Like this is something for like 6th edition or something. I don't know how you could implement this single rule without just changing it from what D&D is right now.
I think it would be necessary to have a lot of work on the Dungeon Master's part, but it's fairly easy to just copy and paste the document. The players wouldn't have to worry about too much. And to the point of players only having the PHB, in that case, that's fine. You don't need this rule if you have a whole group of players that only has the PHB. But most people that I have played with don't have any of the books. They access things through online sites. They look at sites like Wikidot, which have like everything listed. So rather than so they have all of the options available to them right there, and they don't have the ability to distinguish like UA versus what's currently in play. So there does need to be an equaling out because there's a massive power difference there.
Yeah.
In my experience, I've DM'd for a lot of new players, especially like back in high school with our D&D club. That is not very much not the case. And I see where you're going, but
I think the balancing issue in D&D is overhyped. I really don't think it's a problem. Like in our campaign, no one's complained about optimal builds. No complaint I've played. I know there are people out there. But like that's the whole like player archetype. I mean, how are you going to deal with that? I don't think balancing, and there are unbalanced things, but not every player. We don't have everyone in the party playing. I can't name an unbalanced build off the top of my head. Playing a paladin, multi-class warlock, or whatever. So,
of course. But you want to be able to bring up those lower level things that nobody thinks is a good idea to play with. If you take the Arcane Archer from Fighter, nobody wants to play that because when you look at it, 2 shots per short rest that never scale, you know?
That's also if that's I don't know if that's like a character creation homebrew. That is more of a game system kind of subclass sort of thing. Whereas I do. Well, before we're out of time, I do want to move on to Jake. I
want to crush Amanda first. Can I do that?
Let me say first. I think giving every player feat's a good idea. I have a gripe with feats when they're unbalanced, and I think giving every player one is a really good thing. I just think one of your points was that it encourages people to play other races besides variant human, and that is true. Although I think mine plays into that a little more and encourages that a lot more. In fact, it makes it very much more class specific and class based and character based.
Your one does it to the point that what is even the point in racist? Like they have modifiers. They have modifiers for a reason. Orcs, half orcs are stronger than gnomes. Dwarfs are stronger than gnomes, and gnomes are probably smarter.
But is a half orc wizard going to be stronger than a gnome barbarian? What if I want to play a gnome barbarian, but I don't want to feel pressured by
this is why
stats to play something else?
No, this is so okay. Let's take the gnome barbarian. They were born weak, but they probably developed their strength, and this is where the rolling stats come in. You put your highest stat in strength. I mean, you're not.
It just doesn't make sense that another race would have a just like
It does.
inherently
It's just
better
like
chance
it's
at
just
a
the
thing.
truth of
I
existence.
think we addressed the Tasha's Cauldron of Everything thing, and I agree that your module does it a lot more sensitively than Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. But this is
Tasha,
not.
it's so lame. It's like
Yes,
they sort of addressed it, but it
It's
feels weak. It's like, just put them anywhere. It doesn't really matter anyways. But it does matter. Like, you want it to feel purposeful.
It's very lame. It's very weak, but mechanically, it's the exact same as what you're suggesting. You can put the stats wherever you want.
But the reason why I enjoy the class modifier module a little better is because it encourages more class-driven and character-driven creation. It still gives it structure. Tasha's just strips away all of the structure from that. It's just like, hey, put it where you want. Whereas it's still, the class modifier module still gives you some constraints. It has like 3 stats for each class. It does a really cool, like, kind of 3-step kind of questions, like, to get you thinking about who your character is in order to redistribute these stats. Still allows you to keep those racial traits, like things like the dark visions or like Fey ancestry, like I mentioned. So it still matters, race still matters, but it's not like these predetermined stats that will affect the game design.
The thing is,
strip away a little bit of the build, because you can have dexterity-based paladins, you can have barbarians where their dex is higher than their con, and I think that having the stats that are specifically meant for the particular class does strip away a certain amount of choice.
And on that, like, you don't becoming a wizard doesn't make you smart. You become a wizard because you're smart. Why would being a wizard make you intelligent? You should be intelligent. Put your best stat in intelligence, and
this is what this still implies. It's still, no, it's, you know, it's not saying like you're a wizard.
This is where rolling stats comes into play. I mean, it's not like everyone just has 10 and everything, and they get the modifiers, and so they have to being the wizard gets intelligence.
And no, it's not discounting that.
I think you just take, if you remove race bonuses, you do take away from realism. Like, there are disparities in a half-orc and a gnome.
So it's really one thing. Race stuff in D&D is always very dicey area.
I think this is only a problem because people make it a problem. Like, that whole orc being negative intelligence, that was only made like race problems because people made it so. Nobody at Wizards had the intent. I'm not going to say what it is because I don't want it's the D&D debate, but no one at Wizards had that in mind when they gave orcs a negative intelligence modifier.
I think
orcs are like. I recommend we move on from this discussion because oh boy, does it go deeper than 6 minutes allows for.
Let's call it on the chaos. Let's call it on the chaos, and let's just go ahead into closing remarks. Any closing remarks that you would like to say before we move on to the next round? The floor is yours.
I think that my rules set up players that will later be disappointed if they choose, because it is frustrating to play one of the weaker options, even if you choose to do it. And that's, I'm not saying you can't pick it. I'm not one of those people who are like, don't do it. You will eventually get frustrated. And I think that is one of the biggest problems in the character creation process, is that there are certain formulas that you have to go down in order to, a great many formulas, but there are formulas you have to go down in order to make an effective character. And this helps you address making the vision of your character without having to insert into your campaign a bunch of magic items and hope that it makes its way to a certain character. It lets weaker options be non-frustrating for characters when it makes sense thematically.
With mine, it encourages a lot more character-focused creation. I'd argue that for the most part, you think about you define your character by your class a lot more than you do your race. However, the class modifier module still allows you to keep those integral parts of the race to your character without these sort of kind of like predetermined notions that kind of represent a not so great part of the racial part of high fantasy. Like I said, it encourages character development and background. It just gets rid of this need of this kind of bias of like a wood elf ranger will just be inherently better at being a ranger than a human would. And I think it's fun, it's cool, and I'm going to be using it in my next campaign. So Jake, get ready.
guess to do my closing statement. I think my system is nice and simple. It's fun for the players. It allows them to vary their character build and add to their backgrounds. I still don't entirely know what Scott was saying, but it sounds really complicated, like changing the system.
Yeah.
And Amanda's one, I think she's taking like races. Like when you choose a race, it's like choosing your class. I mean, they obviously have different importance. Like class gives you the saving throws proficiencies, but race, I would say the modifiers it gives isn't even that big. But I think my thing is the best way of kind of changing what you're going to be, so you're not always a variant human, and as you give stuff to your backgrounds. J'ai fini.
Alrighty, that was question 1. Question 2, we will have either Amanda or Scott roll first, or go first. I'll roll for that. Scott, we'll have you go first for question 2. Here we go. Combat in D&D is undeniably crunchy, and there are a lot of rules to keep track of after the PCs roll initiative. So it stands to reason that DMs sometimes bend, add, or even subtract the rules of D&D combat to make it more fitting to the game that is being run. How do you modify combat in your games, and why is it the best improvement upon the so-called official rules of D&D combat? Scott, your 2 minutes starts right now.
Okay, so normally I go for a very crunchy stat-based kind of answer. However, in this case, I would like to posit a very soft rule that is for DMs. And I will disclaim that this is for theater of the mind and in-person combat where you have the book, where you're not pressing abilities on Roll20 and that ability pops up for everybody. This is a rule that makes combats makes combats against villains more interesting and more dynamic, and it is low effort. It is literally the lowest effort rule that you can have, which is run spells based on your first impression of what the spell should do. But what I mean by that is you see the spell catapult and you think, okay, great, this person is going to use catapult to throw the adventurer across the room. Run it as though it was that. Use the same damage as it says on the spell, but rather than having to check through everything, it is fantastic for new DMs to be able to implement low-level spells in scary and interesting ways that change the battlefield. It doesn't wreck the balance. Again, it doesn't wreck the balance of your party because they can't find repeated abuse cases. It only lets these one-off villains have flame strikes that go on in like the middle of a wall somewhere and separates the party and creates a unique and compelling combat encounter. If you run things based on your first dramatic impulse, particularly with these spells which are so difficult to read through, you will find yourself with that natural dramatic impulse elevating the combat. The first impulse for dramatics is normally the best dramatic option.
All right, time. Cool. So running spells off of dramatic impulse.
Can I just ask, like, to clarify? Is this just for the bad guy, not players as well?
This is just for the bad guys.
Okay. Cool.
Shit, I like this a lot. Damn it. How am I gonna...
Okay, so Amanda, since you went second last round, we're gonna have Jake go second this round. Jake, same question to you. How do you modify combat in your games, and why is it the best improvement upon the official rules of D&D combat? Your 2 minutes begins now.
I think so. First, I'm gonna just grammar. I think a lot of the crunchiness comes from the player side. Them not knowing their characters off by heart, them metagaming. I'm just kind of putting this out there. I'm gonna come up with a rule. I'm just saying. And them just got metagaming and them kind of not knowing what they're doing when it comes to turn. But you can also reduce the clunkiness on the DM side. I don't know about like changing rules. I think Scott's idea was actually great and would kind of coincide with what I'm saying. I think just try and keep combats dynamic and not repetitive. Avoid the I run up to the guy and hit him with my sword scenario. Kind of keep the counter constantly changing, keep the players engaged. Say, for example, they're fighting a goblin chief. Instead of just being the monster manual goblin chief, have him like an ability he can do each round. Like one round, goblins around him can move. Maybe he summons a goblin each round. Maybe he gives a goblin advantage. Just constantly different, so the battle is constantly variable, whatever. And I mean, you could throw a Scots rule in there, like have the guy's spells be different each round, so the players don't know what to expect. I think there's also some other like small rules you could add in, like more stuff with nat 20s and nat 1s, like nat 20 on initiative gives advantage, nat 1 gives disadvantage, nat 20 on saves avoids damage, nat 1 crit damage on saves. That's just kind of little things, but I think the main thing I'm emphasizing is kind of homebrew your encounters to keep them dynamic, keep them interesting, and keep your players thinking so that their turns don't just come down to I go, I hit. J'ai fini.
J'ai fini indeed. All right, so cool. So modifying combat and making it more dynamic with those things. Cool. So that leaves us with Amanda, your opening statement for question 2. Modifying combat, 2 minutes, go.
So I believe rules as written, at least in the original versions, making an action, or sorry, wow, oh my god, for an action, making an ability check, sort of like an action. That's really a thing, but I don't think any DM actually does that. And any rules about an ability check being an action in combat is dumb and should be thrown out. It should just be all the DM's discretion. Because the fact of the matter is, if you can be making dex saves in response to spell attacks on your turn, you should be able to also just make a check to see something, to perceive, especially if it'll change the outcome of like what you choose to be doing in combat. I think rules in combat should be there, like homebrew rules at least should be there to make things easier. Combat is crunchy, we've established that. It can be a lot, and this is just one less thing you have to be thinking about. You shouldn't be wanting to have to sacrifice your turn to see if someone is invisible and where they are. You should be able to go. That is part of it. It's fine. Of course, if it's things like you gotta make a medicine check to save your friend, yeah, that should be a whole turn, like a whole action. But it's all the DM's discretion. The DM is there to be able to make these kind of quick rule changes and adjustments on the spot. It's just helps the flow of things. You're not sacrificing time to do lame stuff. You want to be kicking ass. You shouldn't be spending time to look around for stuff or to sense direction or to recall some knowledge that may help you make an even cooler attack. And again, most DMs, I think, are pretty cool with this. I don't think any DM really follows that suggestion from the player's handbook that, like, hey, making a check is technically an action. I think that's all I have to really say about it. It's easy, it's simple. Everyone else yells, it's good. I know I'll use how much time do I have left? Can I use this time to start?
Okay. That was it.
Sorry, I was a little frazzled trying to look up some things, and I just completely lost track of anything.
That is all right. So yeah, ability checks in combat. Cool. So we have all of our statements out there. I believe it is time for some chaos. So let's hear it. What do y'all got?
Right, I think I'll kick things off. I think this was a question for making combat less clunky. Amanda, your thing will make it more clunky. It's just giving players more things they can do on each turn. There are more rolls they're going to make. More everything. Like, and it's also so minor. Like, when it's so rare, people actually, can I make a perception check? They're like, yeah, DMs just allow it, but it's like once in a blue moon that they actually do that. And if it's more common, then it is going to make it more clunky because you've got to make more rolls. People think, oh, we basically now have an action, a bonus action, and an ability check. So that's
I disagree with
No.
this. I also want to use my disagreement to disagree with Amanda. I think that invisible enemies and trying to perceive invisible enemies is an excellent part of D&D combat, and part of why invisible enemies are so scary is because it's a huge opportunity cost to try and see them. You're stuck either flailing at the air, or you're huddled in a corner looking around, not attacking for a round, trying to see them. I think that that properly replicates the experience of actually finding.
Which is why it's up to the DM's discretion. If I have a character who's trying to just think about, hey, it's very smart spellcaster trying to remember if this enemy type they've encountered before is vulnerable to radiant damage, I'm gonna let them make that wisdom check on their turn and then let them cast the spell afterwards. But yeah, if it's crucial part, more important things will take a whole action. But just saying everything should take an action, no, because characters don't want to be making a check as part of their turn. They want to be doing cool shit that can be aided by making those checks. And obviously it is just the DM's discretion, whatever the DM thinks it's cooler and better to help the flow of combat. Flow is a big thing. It's not just crunchiness. Flow is huge. I have to stop what I'm doing to take most of my turn to be making an ability check or a skill check. That sucks. I don't want to be doing that, especially if it's simple enough that it shouldn't have to take up that much time.
I will say, like, I actually agree with this. I don't think it should, or at least most things shouldn't count as an action. But in the act of trying to reduce clunkiness, I think it does make it clunky, because people are now going to have to decide what they do on their turn depending on the result of that ability check. Like if they're looking
if they want to make the check, they don't have to make the check. It's natural.
Well, if they do make, but if they do make the check, they don't now then after the check decide, oh, I see them, do I attack? What do I do? If I don't see them, what do I do?
It aids in the strategy of it.
No, but it makes it more clunky. We're trying to reduce the clunkiness.
If it was on the table for me as a spellcaster to try and determine damage types that this thing was resistant to, you could bet that I would be making that check every single turn, trying to find out exactly what I can best do against this creature. I think I would get annoying to play with, and I think players who look for that kind of information would get actively. I agree. It would start holding.
Yeah, and then the DM can shut them down to the DM's discretion. That's the whole point. Like the rules come in the box, so the DM can do what they want.
But then the DM is just shutting people down. Players don't like it, but the DM's like, no, you just can't do that.
That's kind of how combat works at this point. In general, like when you get to this high level of combat, it's more engaging. If players want that strategy element, they're going to do it. But like Jake, you said, players rarely make those checks anyways. So why, when it will come in handy in that one chance they should, they want to make it, just double check a thing, why make them sacrifice their entire action for that? And also, Jake, yours isn't not a homebrew thing. It's just a thing, DM, you should be doing regardless of what you're doing. It's just good game design.
Then I don't think there should be a rule change. If that's the rule, I don't think there should be any rule changes. Because I think the system is fine as it is. I think the clunkiness, it's clunky, but is that really a problem? I mean, a lot of the clunkiness, as I said, comes from the players. It does.
I have a problem with that. I have a problem with that. That is saying
it's not a problem.
It's our playtester's fault. Our game is bad.
It's not a problem. It's not a problem, but it's slow because some players do kind of go through their character sheet, think about what they do. Players do discuss on their turns what they should do, and it slows it down. I'm not saying it's bad, but it does slow it down.
You know what would really slow down combat? If I had to waste my turn making an ability check, so a whole round later, I could do something else.
Why would that slow it down? Why would that slow it down?
I could be doing damage. I could be changing the situation, the encounter, but instead I'm just perceiving something or I'm getting information about the environment.
If it's not worth doing, then don't do it.
But what if I need the information to proceed and I really want it?
Then it's worth doing. And if it's worth doing, having it as a free thing would be OP. Everyone would do it every turn, and it's just more clunky.
Jake, you've let me make a wisdom check on my turn, just part of my turn before I cast a spell. If I could,
well, yeah, because it's not. It's what you're asking is fair. I'm like, it doesn't really change the balance. And
that's what I'm arguing for.
No, you just said spotty people are invisible. Use that as an example. I wouldn't allow that.
I brought that up as an example, but it's at the DM's discretion. It shouldn't be hard coded that every ability check should be an action. That's what I'm saying. It should be a lot more fluid and a lot more on the
And
spot based on the situation.
even if I do
You've done
allow
it before,
it,
Scott,
even if
you've done it.
no,
Corey, I know you've done it.
No, but this is a question of reducing clunkiness. I don't do it to reduce clunkiness. I do it because I think it's appropriate.
It's not all of these rules have to be necessarily about clunkiness. It's about
This
the
is
flow
what the
of
question is
combat.
about. This is
Flow
what the
is different than
question is about.
clunkiness. Oh my god.
This is-
It's the flow. The flow.
Well, then
Scott, yours
the
is
flow,
fine.
the
Corey, give the
flow.
point to Scott. I don't care. Just don't give the point to Jake.
All right, chaos over. Chaos over. Let's rein it in.
My closing statement was about to be everybody likes mine.
Yeah.
Everyone liked my first one. I thought to say that. Anyway. Carry on.
All right. Any last speak your piece before we move on to this third question?
Everybody likes mine.
I'll add to that. I too like Scott's. I do think. I mean, I didn't really bring it up, but it might get like a bit complicated. If like first impressions, like you just got to decide every turn, like what you're gonna do. But
well, not for the players.
Okay. I know, but even for
Jake,
the
you said yourself that the checks will come in. They happen so rarely, so it shouldn't matter anyway.
Well, I'm talking about Scott's here. This is my closing statement.
Okay, sorry.
This is my closing statement.
Okay.
But I think it's fun. Like even if it is just a monster, like if there's multiple spellcasters, it might get a bit much for DM. I'm just putting out there, but it is pretty fun. I mean, yeah, mine's not really a rule, but then if you don't get count as a rule, then I just don't think there should be any rule changes. If there was to do a rule change, I probably wouldn't do a rule change. I think it's fine the way it is. I mean, I kind of do what Amanda's saying, but not for the effect of reducing clunkiness. I don't really know why that would do that.
Okay. I'm going to say, I don't necessarily do it to reduce clunkiness. I do it to improve the flow of combat, because to halt an entire player's turn, the player does not want to have to make a check for them, especially if it's, just to get information or something, a quick thing. They should not have to stop their entire action to just do that. I'd argue every DM uses this homebrew modification, whether you think about it or not. And also, last thing I want to say is that, Jake, the fact that you say most crunchiness comes from the players, honestly,
I didn't say most. I did say most.
Yes,
I said part.
Yes, what you said. I wrote it down.
I did not. I said part of it. I did not say
No,
most.
you
any
said
point.
most. No.
Did I say most? I did not say
Yes.
most.
I haven't written down. You said most.
I'll cut it in. It's in the recording with that you said most.
That's not
If I did say most, which I didn't, but if I did say most, then sometimes it is most, but not always. I think it's fair to say part on the players, part on the team. If I said most, I retract.
You don't blame players.
No,
Corey,
I said
end it. Corey, end it.
Time for question 3. All right. So with question 3, we've got the order established. Amanda, you're going to be going first.
Great.
Then Jake, then Scott, I believe. Or Jake, did you go second last time?
I think I went last on the first one.
Yeah, I'm going last, I think.
Okay, so then we have Amanda, then Scott, then Jake. So I'm excited for this. We're going to do things a bit differently with this question 3. Thus far, we've talked about homebrew in terms of rules, but the concept of homebrew goes further than just how you play the game. Homebrew also encapsulates what game you're playing in the first place. So my question to you all is this: who can create the best homebrew D&D campaign? Here's how we'll figure this out. I'm going to give you all 10 minutes to come up with a new idea for a homebrew story to run as a campaign. And after those 10 minutes, you're going to present your homebrew campaign story idea and debate simply as to which one is the best. All I need is a title, a central conflict, and an overall vibe. Okay, those are the 3 things I need. Just do your best. It'll be great. So again, 3 things. All you need is a title, a central conflict, and an overall vibe or essence. But any and everything else you include in your pitch could be possible bonus points, so get creative. And use those brilliant DM brains of yours to come up with an awesome homebrew campaign idea that I or any D&D player would be excited to play. We all know each other well enough and I'm sure we'll all feel comfortable in the confines of the honor system. So do not use any ideas you have already had for a campaign. Come up with a new one right here, right now. Get a piece of paper ready or an open Google Doc ready. Make sure that it's all up and running so that you don't waste any time brainstorming these ideas. So that's pretty much gonna be our question 3. If you have any questions, please ask, because I don't just want to be like, go do that. But yeah, okay. So let's go ahead and make sure you guys have your papers, your docs open, ready to go. The 10 minutes begins now. Okay, 10 minutes. There it is.
Radical.
We are.
I mean, I spend this much time designing my campaigns anyway, so.
I definitely don't. But hopefully we've got some good ideas to throw around. So yeah, Amanda, you will be first. Let's hear it. Let's hear what you got.
How much time do I have to pitch my?
Are we debating this section, by the way, or are we just giving up pitches?
I mean, we could have some chaos to talk about it. I mean, maybe this could be like more of a
like
positive
this,
thing. Like
you're just
kind of pitching.
And we're all pitching, and then whoever wins is whoever gets the money. Corey's our investor.
Whoever gets the green, whoever gets the go picture.
As much I have like my PowerPoint behind me, and I'm like shaking your hand.
Right. Yes. Ew, handshakes. Ew. At this time, no. Yeah, Amanda, you will be first. Then what was it, Scott? Then Jake. Okay. Amanda, you ready? Boom.
So in this campaign, you're all going to die. Be it some terminal illness, infernal deal, or bounty on your head. You know your time left in this world is coming to a close. However, this is why you've been called onto this mission. As the world is now threatened by the return of an old evil god, you must perform this ritual in order to prevent the destruction of everything you've ever known. You don't know what you'll encounter along the way or what it will bring, but at the beginning, you're not expecting to make it out at the end. However, just what a way to go, right? In my campaign, I'm calling it the Final Farewell. Final Farewell, God, I can't speak today. The party, essential complex that the party must save the world by essentially going on a suicide mission. I guess the overall vibe and essence is it's a little darker, it's more emotional, a little tenser, higher stakes in a weird way too. However, obviously, along the way, as it's a magical journey and adventure, you may find ways to save your lives. You can play around with motivation and who your characters are, like why they're going to die, why they've chosen to go on this mission as like a kind of suicide thing, any bonds or connections they may have, as it is a fight too. And also this ritual is still a little undefined, so it's just to prevent the destruction of everything, the entire world. This group of people who in some way or another know they're going to die pretty soon anyways. They're going to sacrifice themselves to save everything. And it's going to be kind of tense and emotional, full of feelings, and plenty of room for like, I don't know, if you want like the romance or family or death and love and life. It has so much potential with the fun in a weird way sort of premise, all of the kind of classic fantasy adventure. That's all I got for my pitch. Thank you for your time, Corey.
Yes, thank you. So that was about 2 minutes. We'll call the others 2 minutes as well, but I'm very intrigued by the Final Farewell. So yeah, let's take it to Scott. What's the pitch? Oh, wait. There we go. Okay, sorry.
The old gods are dying, and as their divine light fades from the world, so too does the sun glow dimmer, the winters and shadows lengthen. On winding roads late at night there are no forces to hold back the devils that lurk in the dark. We begin our story in a religious boarding school of the aesthetic of the late 19th century. Here, children of great potential, most but 16, are gathered together by a school board with agendas these children, the players, do not understand. As they try and be children in this increasingly dark world, a god's divine energy will be suffused in one of them early on as part of a ritual to keep the god alive, a process terrifying to a mere child. The school board, cold and calculating but right in what must be done to save the world, have gathered these remarkable children to find the remnants of gods, house their divine powers, and help resurrect them. The campaign would span a decade or more in-game. Watching the children grow as forces that wish godly power for their own means fight against them. The world would be harsh, much too harsh for children, but this is what most must be. I call it the Saint Baudelaire School for Gifted Children. The genre would be a dark fantasy, coming-of-age story. It would take place over long amounts of time. There would be a very strict structure of chapters based on recovering individual old gods' bodies and powers. You'd come into conflict with organizations that seek to use the gods' powers for disparate means. I see this as an adventure where you don't know the BBEG from the start. You just have this premise and you just have this world, and based on the adventure you're going against, based on the region you're going against, different antagonists, not one overarching thing, letting the players grow, the characters grow into themselves as time goes past again and again, and of course getting hints of the BBEG eventually, like mid to halfway through.
All right, that is time for that. Very, very cool idea. I like it a lot. So Jake.
You guys got some dark stuff going on.
Last but not least, we got Jake.
For 2 minutes, you say?
Starting now.
Right, I'll start with the title. The time of the adventurer is over. The time of the monster has come. Instead of playing the party of adventurers traveling across the realm, defeating foes, you will play as the monsters. By monsters, I mean those you normally fight, so goblins, minotaurs, zombies, werebears, etc. And now for enough editions of D&D have these monsters been oppressed. It's time for their stands. So you now represent the world of monsters, and you must put an end to the murderous adventurers who are going around killing your comrades. The central conflict will be the typical adventuring party as they go around completing quests, terrorizing monsters, and you must now work with your fellow monsters to put an end to their shenanigans before they get too powerful, too high level. Along the way, you must go through civilizations, but monster civilizations, and associate yourself with monsters. So you're seeing it from the other perspective. And you will have to track the adventurers through the land, fighting their allies, fighting those from like the civilized world, and it will culminate. The adventurers are trying to kill the Dragon King Yorgmoth, but the monsters know that Dragon King Yorgmoth is a benevolent leader. He provides good for the monsters, but the adventurers are going to kill him, so you must stop them. So the vibe will be kind of like you're seeing a D&D campaign from the other perspective. Instead of going around completing quests and killing monsters, you'll be the monsters trying to kill the adventurers. But this doesn't mean you're evil. It doesn't mean you're evil. You're kind of showing the perspective that perhaps what the adventurers are doing is evil, and maybe you're the one doing the good. And so you must now save your monster civilization and stop the adventurers from ending it. I'm done.
Cool. Just in time.
Jake,
we've got our ideas.
Jake,
go ahead.
Jake, you should go on YouTube and look up Dimension 20 Escape from the Bloodkeep. It is a 6-episode D&D play show campaign. Pretty much exactly the premise you had. Not saying it's not a good premise, but it exists. I think you'd like it, actually. It's fun. Matt Mercer's in it.
Does this not provide evidence how good my homebrew is? Because I didn't know this existed.
I mean, it's so, but definitely exists. It lasts about 6 episodes, and I think that's good length. Not a campaign; it's a short little multi-shot.
I think it could be a campaign. Like if you, as long as you have like monster civilizations and people like monsters that you can engage with, I think it could be long. You need to make sure it's not just going through like a hack and slash. You need to, as if like you have all the things the normal campaign is, but it's like monsters instead of people.
Debatable.
I do not think that's. I think it could be a campaign.
So I would say we could go into chaos, but really I just kind of want to like talk these over just so that I can get a better idea of these campaigns, because off of those opening statements, I can't really figure out as a clear-cut winner or what have you. So I guess I'll start with Amanda. So the final farewell, you want this dark, tense, like emotional sort of story, and the conflict is that like all of the player characters are like on their last legs or their deathbed or like close to death in some way, right? And they're just kind of put in this situation where they have to save the world, but also they have to like die in the process.
That's what
Correct me if I'm
they've
wrong.
been told. Yeah.
Right.
So generally, the kind of the one thing this party has in common is that in some way their life is coming to an end pretty soon in some way. However, it's pretty well known. That's why they've all been called upon by probably like a central government sort of thing. It's like, hey, we know how to stop this evil BBG thing from destroying the world. However, it's gonna involve death, and we think you guys already kind of have that on a plate. Would you do us this favor and save the world? And actual motivations and things like that. It's gonna be different from player to player, but overall that's sort of the initiating thing, what gets it started, what kind of kicks it off. And obviously throughout the entire campaign, like there's going to be opportunities. Something will come up, like, oh, maybe there's a way to do it and you won't have to die. Maybe they find something along the way that's like, oh, this could cure this dude's disease. Wait a minute. And if he's cured, does he still want to go on the suicide mission? But like, this is all he's known. And it's just nuances and complex things, and like character-driven stuff. And it's good. It's spicy. Ooh, love it.
Yeah, for sure. Almost kind of reminds me, and this is not a bad thing, although it might sound like it, with like utmost, like it's just a cool premise. As far as a cool premise goes, kind of like a Suicide Squad type of deal.
A little bit, yeah.
Just in the sense that it's
a squad of people about to commit suicide. Yeah.
Right. What are you, some sort of suicide? Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But no, I do like the idea a lot.
This is actually going to be good. This will actually be good.
But like right, that's what I'm saying. Take it how you will.
Character, her soul steals the soul. Her sword steals the souls of its victims.
Yes. Cool.
Okay.
So now I'm gonna, I guess, ask Scott about St. Bowder's School of Gifted Children, right?
Yeah.
Hell yeah. And that one's kind of just children sort of having the powers of like the dying old gods, and the conflict is that like certain people are out there trying to take that power for themselves, and then the party would be like the teachers kind of trying to protect them.
The party would be the kids.
The party would be the kids. Gotcha.
Party would be, there's this school board over top, and you are playing as like the 16-year-old boarding school. Like it has the aesthetic of like a Catholic boarding school, like a bunch of Catholic boarding school kids who find out the administration is like, oh my God, they're fucking us up. And they implant like these old gods into them, and start sending them on like missions to help recover other old gods. It would have this very kind of like late 19th century England, dark winding roads, Black Forest kind of vibe to it. It would have yeah, I mean the main draw of it would be like this kind of academic aesthetic that I think a lot of people would find fun. People like boarding school movies. And then it would also have this aging component to it, this It would just take place over a long span of time.
Yeah.
You'd have that opportunity for like character growth, and with the old gods being housed inside them, I pictured kind of like differing relationships based on like some of it could be parental, some of it could be antagonistic. They could be different metaphors for different things within them based on what the character and the player want to explore.
Nice, nice. I like that a lot. And then Jake, we kind of touched on it already. I would have brought it up too. I've watched a little bit of Escape from the Bloodkeep, and again, this is not a bad thing at all. Just kind of a similar take of like, okay, what would the bad guys be doing? Like, what is their story? What does their adventure kind of look like?
So, is that Adam?
No. Just
so like a typical D&D campaign is like, you've argued for this in the past, a dragon being the BBEG. And then you probably have been led to believe that there's a good reason why you're trying to kill this BBEG, that it's supposed, like, it's a dragon. People want to kill the dragon. So these adventures are going on a typical one. I'd probably make them kind of almost ruthless, just so it kind of feels like the monsters are justified, unless the players themselves are fine with just wanting. It's up to the players, but they would kind of go on a typical like adventure you might expect you to do as a party if you were them. So they go on the quest, they eventually level up, they go on more quests, going to towns, dealing with this problem here, and you as the monsters are kind of constantly going, tracking them. And instead of fighting like monsters, of course you can't do that, you are monsters yourselves, you'd be kind of fighting allies of the heroes. These heroes won't start like level 1, because like, why would they have any allies? They probably start at a higher level, so they have allies, and you're kind of going after them, and they have these, I don't know, you probably maybe they're some kind of lord, like there's a lord in the party that they've got some guards carrying them around. Maybe for variety, one monster race has sided with them, just to give a variety of monsters you counter, but you're kind of constantly going after them, trying to catch up with them, trying to become as powerful at them, because you start at a lower level. That's kind of what I'm going with.
nice. Yeah. Cool. Yeah.
And
Just.
I mean, Amanda said that it's couldn't be a long campaign. I mean, I disagree, but even if it was just a 6 session, is that not still a campaign? Or should we not count Heroes of Labor a campaign? So
that's fair. That is,
okay.
you know
Maybe
what?
we have some room for chaos.
I was just throwing it out there, but you know what? That's fair.
I do think that it could be a long campaign, but you will need to make sure that you still have this like social interaction side of things. Like, you encounter these, like, you know how you invade a cave and there's like some kind of goblin civilization? Usually you just kind of rush through the dungeon killing every single goblin without asking who the goblins are. Well, now you're the monsters, you might encounter this goblin town and kind of see from their perspective, and maybe you're present when the adventurers arrive. Currently, this may be your first encounter with them. They arrive, you're in this goblin cave system, and the adventurers just kind of steam through it, killing everything. They're too high a level for you to encounter, so you kind of escape somehow. And now you know about these adventures.
Yeah, I like that angle. So cool. Yeah. I just wanted to go around and just get, a little bit more of a good grasp of y'all's concepts, but I'll say that is like a wrap on question 3, unless you guys wanted to say anything else about your ideas for homebrew campaigns. But those are all super cool ideas that I hope you get to run in the future. So
I would love to play both of those campaigns, both of your guys' campaigns. Those sound dope as hell.
I think all those ideas are actually really cool, let's be honest.
I'm running a game about kids right now, and let me say, tonal wise, very much not dark academia, late 19th century. But no, I think it's a very interesting way to approach. Hey,
I mean, like, I almost want to run the one I've just been talking about, but I got to get the intellect of Barrett one out first. Then I can move on to this one.
Mine is just Suicide Squad. Shit.
It's different.
Again, nothing wrong with that premise. It's the execution.
Suicide Squad is being coerced, though.
Yeah, and it depends on who your party is too, man. Like, if they're like just good heroes that are gonna die, then that's different than villains who are gonna die in jail.
Yeah.
Depends. So I need to do a little quick tally up of these scores and figure out who won today's episode. Okay, what do y'all want first? The berries or the juice?
What?
What does this mean?
So do you want me to go through the breakdowns of each question, or do you want me to go overall first?
I think the best we've done it is
knock my ego down.
one, two, and then overall.
Okay, 1, 2 overall. Fair enough. Couple berries, a little bit of the juice. Gotcha.
Yeah, you're gonna mix it up. Have your blueberries with
It's like
have your-
nature's cereal.
have your
Yeah, see, nature's
blueberries
cereal?
with your blueberry juice.
But
Anyway, so
that's just an idea.
for question one, I had Amanda winning that one. I enjoy the idea of class modifications, and there's actually a pretty good discourse between, like, I think Amanda, you said something about people define their character by their class and not their race, but then also I think, I mean, again, a big, crazy rabbit hole we could have gone down as far as race in D&D. But overall, I think I liked your argument the best, and it's something that I think I would do in character creation. Although I do like the idea of feats. I mean, I appreciate it as a player of your campaign, Jake, having had 2 feats going into level 1. And then Scott's, I'm gonna be honest, I still don't 100% understand how it works. But I'm sure that, like,
The homebrew rule was Scott does a bunch of homebrew.
fair enough.
Yeah, that's a rule.
And then for round 2, I had Scott winning. I really do like that idea, and I think, I mean, everyone else liked it too. Like, there was just kind of no arguments against it, at least not that I can remember, or at least
it was cool.
enough.
It was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
So yeah, that won round 2. And so overall, with a score of 31 points.
Jesus.
I guess. 31 points. Amanda,
Thank you.
you've done it.
Oh my god. I was this is only one where it's not just about my like book knowledge. I can pull up my game design knowledge because I have that.
Yes. Also, I think you were in second place in round 2, and I think you had a lot of good counter arguments as far as, like, what you were trying to convey, as far as just there being discretion, like, if this is the check you want to make, thinking about whether they can make it and then making it. But yeah, overall, Amanda, you take home the crown. I think there's something I can't remember. There's some saying that I'm blanking on. But Amanda, you win. Congratulations. Scott, you were second. Jake, you were third. And then for round 3, I had Amanda and Scott tie.
You don't like my idea, Rip.
I did not like your idea. I just I don't know. I liked it a lot. I liked all the ideas, and I'm glad.
Hard round to call for me.
Hmm?
That would have been a hard round to call for me.
It was.
Yeah.
That's why I had to go, like, talk more about it, just to get a feel for everything.
Yeah.
Like, but yeah, that's how today played out. That's how this episode played out. Thank you all for listening. Like, share, follow, subscribe, whatever you have to do. Keep us in your ears.
Who do you think should have won and why? Or also, if you want to reiterate why it's correct that I won, feel free to just share your thoughts on that too.
What are cool homebrew rules you use? What's a cool homebrew story that you've come up with and want to share? Please let us know. Once again, thank you very much for listening. This has been D&Debates. Catch you next time. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.